What your story sounds like is James Dyson's story, and a lot of listeners, longtime listeners of the show, should know that I am a huge fanboy. I have both of his biographies. Like, this guy's so prolific. He peaked in like the late '90s and had a biography, an autobiography, and then he peaked again with all his work on developing product engineering talent, and did another biography. But that was his whole thing, where he's like, he started out as a product designer, mostly focused on industrial design, but he had an urge to like impact the technology that he was designing as well. And so he, in his words, moonlighted as an engineer. But once you have the idea, it only takes 6 months to learn the technology. I think for you, like, well, when did that moment happen in your product design career where you felt like this urge to get more involved in the actual implementation of the tech stack and the coding and everything like that? Because kind of come to that conclusion as well, especially heavily influenced by James Dyson. And I also see it as like this natural progression for very innovation minded designers. Do you remember that moment, and like what caused you to like get out of the craft of the actual like industrial design and getting into the actual tech side of it?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a specific moment. I always did technology in my career. I actually learned computer programming when I was in middle school, and so learned Logo. It was my initial foray as a 12-year-old into computing logic. I actually took very few CS classes in college because I really was very interested in thinking about how did people use things, and that felt very removed. And so, really, my product design major, as a mixture of mechanical engineering and art, really scratched my kind of creative and nerd side at the same time. And so that was very rewarding. When I went into designing sites, I've always followed my heart of I want to know. I don't know if I have the experience to do it, but it's passionate to me. Let me learn. Let me take that challenge. It inspires me. So I didn't have an art degree, but I decided to be a designer. And then I got to the internet, and back then, of course, front end presentation layer was really all rendered on the back end. There was very little interactivity. And so actually what I picked up on was Flash, which is a really new technology back then. It had come from Director at Macromedia, and that was a way to actually do interactivity on the front end that interests me. And then figuring out, okay, and how can I make that data driven? Because I didn't want to make one-off things that couldn't be reused, and the sites that we were building were data-driven sites. And so how could I make this interactivity on a data-driven site? No one knew that technology, so I had to learn it and figure it out. And there were a bunch of us where I was working who were learning to figure that technology out and how could it play into the whole web. And then as the web grew, technology grew, you can make things more interactive. Steve Jobs stood on stage and held up an iPhone, and suddenly there was no more flash work. But it was like really cool because you could do magic of putting technology interactivity on a computer in someone's pocket, and that it really felt like you were doing some kind of sorcery. Right? Despite, and I'll say, even knowing now how to build iOS apps, I spent a long period of time building mobile apps in my career. It still seems like magic to me. Different type of magic than building something for the web. And I think it's because the immediacy of it completely blurs the line between the technology and the product. And so that was always interested in me. It was not a new algorithm. It wasn't this or that. It was really about, can I make something that gave joy to someone using a product or solved a problem using a product? And so it was a natural, I don't think there was one, to your question, there was not one aha moment of, oh, now I realize I need to do this in order to get to here. It was a natural progression. It was me naturally trying to keep learning, doing something I didn't know how to do. I'll say the first iOS project I took, one of my longtime clients asked me, could I build it? I had not the first idea about how to code Objective-C, but that was going to be my mission. And so I learned it and built a fantastic product from that. And so that's always my journey along the way. And that's how we came to found Extend. We had never founded a company. It just seemed like an opportunity that was going to be product driven, that was going to have some cool technology, that had some things I didn't know about. Let's jump in and figure that out. So that's, I think it's that itch that has got me to where I am today.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go back like saying it's like, hey, once you have the idea, you can learn the tech, right? Once you've realized like, oh, this is the intended like experience I want to make. Okay, what technology stacks do we have that could enable this, and then go learn it. So for me, it's taking courses on React because that's like the best way to make design systems right now because it matches with design tools. And It just never gets old when you see something you imagined like several months ago, like acting in code in the QA environment. It just never
No,
gets
it's
old,
certainly
does it?
it's very magical to have something that you thought of and come to life. I'll take it the next step in founding a company. You have this idea that is not out there. You bring it to life, and then you takes it to the next level. Is you then have other people who also see the magic there and who want to join you making that magic. So that's been something that's really, really compelling. And then my next level of growth and learning has been how do you take that design and creativity to a whole company? How do you build a culture? How do you find people who believe in what you were believing in and push for it as hard, if not harder, than what you push for it to start with? So there's stops along the way that make that all compelling and rewards. It has to be right. I think we all get into creative careers because that's who we are. It excites us to build new things and excites us to learn new things, do things that we haven't done before, right? Not just keep doing the same repetitive task, but we want to figure out something new. We want to learn and grow. And so my whole career and this whole journey as a co-founder has really been, scratching that itch the whole way.
I used to be really frustrated earlier in my career when someone would say, "Oh, work your magic," right? Or, "Hey, UX this or design this." There's definitely this zeitgeist of that, like creative people, especially like one of the disciplines I explored was a film. You see a Christopher Nolan or someone that continuously is like a heavy hitter. Everything they make resonates with people. That's it's magic, and it used to frustrate me a lot. But I think like what your comment just sparked is that I think there's an innate human need to want to have the magic. Like they don't want to know how it happened. They just want the result. And it just sounds like even like employees that like join companies, they don't want to know about your amazing strategy and all the work and rigor you put into figuring out what the right problem is to solve. Like they just want to know like, hey, wow, this product is magical. I want to work on it. And that's all they care about.